yourself two dead honest questions about the reality of baseball sports today. With that is this: when did you stop letting youth baseball be about development for actual players? And also, starting with that, we have a lot of predatory business models exploiting parents' wallets and burning kids out before the age of 14, which you guys can relate to that. If your son or daughter is physically does have the physical tools to play at the next level, that's the question we got to ask ourselves. Or are we accidentally sabotaging the D1 dream because he or she steps into a high school field before they're ready? So we're going to answer those questions today. And so stay locked in because I got a very own, as I stated before. Thank you again for tuning in today at the YouGoin Pro podcast. I'm Coach Laurie. At YouGoin Pro, we help develop athletes become proficient, assisting a passion for the game they love. And that means we help them develop to be a pro on and off the field today. So with that being said, I got very own. He's a former D1 player, longtime high school coach, regional supervisor for the Major League Development Pipelines, also the founder of Chasing Baseball Dreams Community. And you want to check it out. You do want to check it out. You want to hear some truth bombs. He's out here every day giving parents real talk, no politics, zero nonsense, how to navigate the youth baseball and recruiting. Welcome, very own Bobby Miner to the show. How you doing, Bobby?
Doing well, man. Thanks for having me.
I'm very excited, which you can tell in my voice, and let's get right to it. Let's talk about the why. It's the why factor because, Bobby, you play D1 baseball, you coach high school baseball like myself, and they run massive community of helping families navigate this crazy machine. When you look at the landscape of today's baseball compared to when we let's just put it that I'm in the same boat as you. We're coming up. What is actually the breaking point or the pieces that kids are in youth baseball, they're not getting the real truth about chasing baseball dreams because they're protecting their families. What can you say about that?
Okay, well, great question. And I would even go out on a limb and say that even when I came up through youth baseball, it's probably even a little bit different than when you did. But I would say the biggest difference is like when I was a kid. Like we're in the summer right now. School's out. Literally every day, me and my buddies would be at a local elementary school playground, a vacant lot, empty baseball field, playing pickup baseball all day long with zero adult supervision. We're out there imitating, emulating our favorite MLB players, and we're playing on our own, learning how to play the game on our own, learning how to think for ourselves in the moment while we're there, again, with zero adult supervision, compared to today when starting with T ball, which starts now as early as 3 and 4.
Yes.
Where you have a t-ball team that has 8 dad coaches. You have all the rest of the parents along the fence, and anytime and every time a ball is put in play, you got dozens of parents all screaming, screaming at the batter, screaming at the fielders what to do. They don't learn how to think for themselves,
Right.
and to me, that's where it all starts. It's just really kind of the um, the over parental involvement that starts at a very, very early age. And I get it because I mean, I love my son. I know, I'm sure most parents love their sons. You
Correct.
want to give them the best opportunities, but this system that's set up now is really not helped to, it's not designed to help you navigate that process with clarity, in my
Hmm.
opinion.
Yeah, and I think I totally agree with you. I guess the question is, let them go, let them learn the game. You know what I'm saying, Bobby? Because if it's like riding a bike. When I learned how to ride a
Mm-hmm.
bike, my mom and dad the first time I remember I had training wheels, but only for a short
Mm-hmm.
period of time. Do that for about a week. They let you go. Hey, it's time to go, and
Mm-hmm.
then I mastered that, but they let me go. They let me go. They said, "You now you're on your own." So then they took the training wheels off. I fell a few times, got up, fell a few times, and they told me what to do from a distance. But as I was going riding the bike, same thing with baseball. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. But see, what we're seeing now is like the analogy you just gave. Typically, you're probably going to be 5 or 6 years old. You have training wheels on your bike. That's the first stage, and then the parents take the training wheels off, and then they might hold the back of the seat and help guide you.
Correct.
But you're 5, 6, or 7. At some point, the parents let go and let you ride the bike. Well, in the baseball world, we got parents with 10, 11, 12-year-old kids still with training wheels on their bikes,
Mm,
and the parents are still holding the back seat,
that's right.
till they're 13, 14. I've seen
Hmm.
parents carrying their son's bag to the field.
Yeah.
The teenagers, to me, it's like I cringe when I see a kid in Walmart that is walking and talking but still using a pacifier. It just like it's crazy to me, and that's kind of the
Right.
same sort of thing that we see
Right.
here in youth baseball. Parents are they baby their kids again because they don't want to set little Skylar off or anything. They don't want Skylar not to go to practice, but it's crazy.
You're right. I mean, I totally agree with you saying because, like I said, I think we come from the same cloth.
Yeah,
You would like the way I coach then because I'm the same
yeah,
exact way.
yeah,
There's red flags in travel baseball. There's extremely a lot of red, and there's a few good ones. So for the people that are listening,
yeah, yeah.
don't think we're hating on travel baseball. I'm not hating on travel baseball. And I heard Bobby say this. You're talking about this about travel baseball because a lot of people take this personally. Don't take it personally. We're talking about the
Right.
mass. We're talking about the masses. We're not talking about the few. But
Mhm.
with that, you've been in dugouts at every level. When a parent is looking at their kid in a tribal organization, and also with that, there's a number of cultural red flags. Cultural, you know that.
Mhm.
Overall, we're talking about baseball, guys. We're talking about baseball now. So,
Mhm.
this coach isn't trying to develop my son. He's trying to pay his bills, what have you. So my question to you is this: how can you deviate that landscape as your kid if you had your son Bobby?
Okay. Well, and see, you just said something too. Like parents will say, they're not developing my kid. But I would venture to guess that a majority of parents out there don't even have any sort of baseline or standards of what development should look like. It's just development is one of the most overused buzzwords in our industry. Um, and so I think there's just questions. I mean, it all starts with asking questions before. I used to say before you write your check. Now I say ask questions before you swipe your card
That's
because
it.
I see it all. I'm in a bunch of Facebook groups. I see parents talking about, oh my gosh, we came to this team, we paid all this money, and now our son's getting one at bat. One at bat per weekend. What would you do? Our coach has brought in three guest players this weekend, even though we weren't short anybody, and three of our players sat the bench. All sorts of things like that
Right.
happen, and they don't.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. You got to ask the right questions on the front end, and ask a coach first of all. What's your definition of development? Well, how do you define development on this team? How does development happen mid-season? How do you handle it if my son's struggling
Yeah.
mid-season? How do
Yes.
you address it? The more questions you ask on the front end, then either the fewer surprises
Correct.
once you've already paid, or at least if the coach isn't doing what he said, you have something to hold him to. Coach, before I signed anything, I asked you these three questions. These were
Correct.
your answers. You know what I mean? But most
Yes.
parents don't. They just they just go and they think because the name on the front of the jersey or because you know Skylar, little Jimmy's friends are playing on this team, and they don't
That's right.
they don't ask the questions. But I think a lot of parents just don't know what
What to
questions
ask?
to
To
ask.
ask? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you because
yeah,
because
yeah.
me and you are very, very relatable when it comes to that situation because a lot of times,
Right.
this is what I do, Coach. Coach, I call you Coach Bobby. What I
Oh
do
yeah.
is,
Mhm.
Coach, I have a meeting the very first day.
Mhm.
Very first day, before you sign, you've already paid. This even in high school, I want to have a
Mhm.
meeting with all the parents. Now, with the parents alone, don't bring your son. He's not invited because there's going to be some grown
Mhm.
folk stuff we need to talk about. So if you ask me a question, I want to make sure you understand it because a lot of times,
Mhm.
like you said, I think we're in a generation that the parents want to be friends with their kids. Now, my mom is not a friend of mine. There's certain things I don't talk to my mom about. Point
Yeah.
blank. Or I'm gonna have some problems. So with that, you can do what you want with your kid, but the point I'm trying to say is there's a balance. There's a line
Mhm.
we have to have on the dirt. When you go into the batter's box,
Mhm.
Bobby, either you hit left-handed or right-handed, or you hit both. Now we know
Mhm.
when the ball comes across, that's a strike zone. If you can swing if you want, but it's still going to be a strike. That's what I'm trying to let you know, as far as that, because the parent-coach dynamic is kind of it's
Mhm.
kind of one of those things you got to develop in the beginning. For all you listeners are listening, and this is episode
Mhm.
148. I got very own Bobby Miner. So we're talking about some very deep in depth things that we're dealing with today with the concept of trying to get to the next level of travel baseball and high school players. So with that, that leads me to a very heavy topic. Parents are so dedicated for their kids. Let's just keep this 100. I know you will, Bobby. Where does
Okay.
the line draw between the parents being parents and active versus completely destroying the relationship of the game, like we talked about before we came on the air?
Yeah.
What does that line look like? Far as criticism when it comes to that.
So that's a great question. I actually talk about it a lot. So I want to preface it by saying, like, so with my son, I actually coached my son. I coached him all the way up through 12 U majors, and then when he was 13 and 14, I stopped coaching him, which was the best thing I ever did. And then once he was in the high school, then I helped coach most of the teams that he played on. But so with my son, I was twice as hard on him as I was on anybody else because I didn't want anybody to say daddy ball. You know what I mean? If he's playing in the infield or he's batting at the
Right.
top of the order, he had to outperform everybody at least double, so that way nobody could say anything,
That's right.
which was really bad. It wasn't fair to him. And when I stopped, so with me and him, our conversations went from like why did you swing at that pitch, like things like that, to when I wasn't coaching him, I was actually able to just watch. I might have asked him like, hey, like what were you thinking? Like what was your approach that at bat?
Right.
Like what were you
Right.
thinking?
Right.
Which was it was more constructive versus more
Destructive.
criticism based.
Right. Right.
But I think it starts with the parents in the stands, their reactions. If their kid is looking at them every time they do something
Oh
bad,
yeah.
that kid's he's not gonna play long term. I can tell you right now because he's too worried about the parents. He's playing for them, and it's like at some point he's gonna break and he's gonna say I'm done. But it starts with their just reaction in the stand, their body language, facial expressions, all of that. It starts there. Then the car ride home.
Oh
You
yeah.
can't
Oh
you
wow.
cannot make the car ride home a complete technical breakdown of everything that happened in the game. It's just like,
Mm.
again, a lot a lot of kids, they dread the car ride home more than anything because it's going to be like, why'd you do this, what happened, what about this, and all these things. And it again, that's not the time nor place, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then the bottom line is, most parents, I'm not gonna say most parents, a lot of parents just don't know what they're talking about. Just being real, I'm just being real, like, you know what
Oh
I mean.
yeah. I like it.
They
I
don't have
like
a
it.
baseball background. They're regurgitating something they saw on YouTube or
Yeah.
whatever. And like, let the coaches coach, and then if you want to support and reinforce whatever the coach is teaching him, do that. But like, you know it's just a mess, man, and it makes the kids not. I actually posted a video yesterday. The number one, the most important thing for any player, I don't care how old they are, from 6 to 18, is love of the game. If they do not love the game, they don't love the game more than the parent does,
That's
they are
right.
not going to keep
That's
playing.
right. That's
And I
right.
would venture to say, a majority of parents out there, their primary dream for their son, I believe, and they may
Yeah.
say no, but is they want to see their son play baseball in college. Anything beyond college to me would be, the
Bonus.
bonus or the cherry on top. But
Right.
they want them to play in college, but they don't realize that in their zeal for helping their son, they're actually hindering that
Yeah.
real that possibility. And it's one of the reasons why 75% of players quit by 14,
Yeah.
and of the ones that are playing, less than 10% go on to play college baseball at any level.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right,
So
Bobby. I appreciate you saying that because it gave me a couple flashbacks. A couple of guys that I coached, and I got one kid that he he was a transfer student, transferred over to my school, and he made a comment to me one day, and it was like I was like, he's like, well, I'm dreading the drive home. Like, what are you talking about? I'm dreading the ride home, coach. I said, what do you mean? He says, well, I'm not gonna say he or she, but when I get in the car, he's gonna ask me every single thing, like from the time I walk to the plate, in the batter's box, in the dugout. And I was like, is it that bad? He's like, yeah. It's like he hammers me. He said, coach, he hammers me, and it's like it's this. And I had another situation based on what you're just saying. I had another kid that threw probably a good 87, 88 from the outfield. Had a great arm, really skinny kid, wiry kid, can hit pretty decent. I thought he could play college baseball. I didn't say at the highest level, but he had an opportunity.
yeah.
He can play. And then when he was a senior, he changed his direction. So I asked him a question. I said, "Hey, you need me to help you, find a school?" Da 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 da. No, coach, I'm not playing high school. I'm not playing college baseball. I was kind of blown away because he had so much
Yeah.
skills. But it goes back to what you just said.
Hmm.
Um, his dad coached him for a long time, coach,
Hmm.
too long, and
Yeah.
he was active with my program, but he was too active. So, in other words, he never got a break from him, and so, like he said, I think the fire went out because he was waiting for that opportunity not to play anymore. I mean, he's not
Yeah.
playing anymore. He could have played, and he's a pretty good guy. I mean, I don't think he would have played D1, but he probably would have played D2 or NAI or JUCO, but he just gave it up. So I just wanted to say that because what you said
Wow.
is on point. It's just I know two kids right now, two, based
Mm.
on what you just said, and I know several more, but there's just two that just kind of fresh in my head, fresh right now. I'm thinking about, and one of them, he said I used to hate getting in the car. He hated it,
Mhm.
like he'd rather walk home. So
I posted a video earlier this week where I was talking about the mental health of especially the players like 12, 13, and 14, the pressure that we put on them at the higher levels, maybe not in rec ball, I'm talking about like elite level travel ball, the pressure like every at bat, every game, every tournament, and just what it does to these players because they're still teenagers. I know, the thing is, you might have a 14-year-old that's 6'2", 190, and he looks
right,
like a man physically, but mentally and emotionally, he's
right,
not a man.
right.
And parents forget that. But I had a kid, I don't know who he is, comment on, I posted this on YouTube, and he was like, man, he goes, show this to my dad. And I mean, it's very real. It's very real. And, when the pressure gets to be too much, they're going to turn to some sort of out. And again, it's much different today than it was when I was a kid because
Yeah,
there weren't all of the outs that there are now. Like, I mean, all you got to do is just pick this thing up. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
and there's a million different, million different things they're trying to pull at you.
yeah. You're right. I appreciate what you just said. Episode 148, we got Bobby Miner chasing the baseball dream. Hey, check him out on Instagram and every social media platform there it is. But I'm going to go to a quick sponsor break. This is YGP Publisher sponsored by. We also, man, I want you to navigate men and women, parents. I want you to understand there's a dynamic cutting through the youth baseball noise. It's actually why families get left behind. I don't know what the real standard of college baseball coaches you're thinking, but this is what it is. If you want to get some free information, free, just go ahead and get a copy at YouGoin Pro. I'm sorry, oh man, YouGoin Pro Publisher. I got tongue tied over here. YouGoin Pro
Mhm.
Publisher, and this is the name of my book. The name of my book is Are You Really D1? Are You Really D1.com. Get you a copy of that. It breaks down college coaches, what they're looking for, the matrix, actually what matters. I'm going to repeat that. Actually, what matters, not what you want to matter, what matters.
Mhm.
With that being said, college baseball is not for everybody, but it might be for your son or daughter. So check it out. Go straight to www.rud1.com and grab your copy today. So with that being said, Bobby, we're going to talk about high school coaches versus travel organization conflict because
Mhm.
there's a huge conflict. I mean, because I coach high school baseball, and sometimes we got kids that don't come to practice or they don't come here. There's like a quiet storm. It's a storm between high school coaches and travel baseball. Guys are trying to flip the coin, which is more important. What would you
Mhm.
tell that kid that's trying to go to the next level when there's a conflict, like during fall season? Let's talk about that. What would you tell them?
Okay, great question. And a lot of it depends on where you live and the high school baseball program that you're attached to. Now, the fall's a little bit different. Well, the fall's different because if you're playing travel ball, you're most likely, I mean, all your games are going to be on the weekends. You're not going to be doing anything with your school on the weekends in the fall. And most practices, you're not going to be doing anything after school with your team in the fall. So I don't know that there's going to be much of
Correct.
a, much of a
Conflict of interest.
conflict there. But I would say that in the spring, like if you're playing for your high school team is a priority, which there shouldn't even be any travel ball tournaments if you're in high school. I mean, I know maybe if you're 14, That's going to be a little bit different. But your high school team, your high school program, if you're playing for your school, to me, that takes priority. Season's going to be over for most of them anyway by May 1st for the most part, unless maybe you live in the Northeast or whatever.
Correct.
You have all summer at the high school level to play travel ball. And so that, I mean, that starts there. And I know there are a lot of high school baseball programs where, the baseball coach is the history teacher who's just doing it to get a stipend, and maybe he's not a baseball guy. I can't really, if you're still going to play for your school, honor that, because it's a different thing playing with the same group of guys all the way through, wearing
Right.
your school name on your chest. That's different. But make sure that you're with a good travel program where you're getting good reps against good competition, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's local or you're traveling. But at my son's high school, we he graduated in 2023. Like the head coach played college baseball. He coached college baseball at the D1 level before becoming a high school coach, and then their main assistant also played college baseball. It was the largest 6A school in Fort Worth. Now they're down to 5A, and like they dominated the past 2 years. But it was a really really good program. And so I know everyone doesn't get that experience. Like here in Texas, you have a lot of powerhouse
Right.
high school programs, but so you are getting value out of high school baseball, there. But it's funny because people have posted something else talking about if your son's not playing, it's not politics, because here's the thing: travel baseball for the most part is pay to play. Okay, up till the age of 14, if you're paying three, four, $5,000 a year, your son is going to play. He may not play the position you want. He may not play equal to everybody else, but he's going to play. If not, I can't help you. Okay. When you get to high school, especially the varsity level, your son may not play at all.
That's
He
right.
may play in a couple of scrimmage games, but
That's right.
once tournaments start, he may not even touch the field. And
Mm-hmm.
everybody loves to cry politics. And my whole point is it's not politics nearly as much as parents want to convince themselves. Okay.
Mm.
It's a totally different animal.
Yes.
But anyway, I was saying it's pay to play, and it's not in high school. And people, no, you have to pay in high school. I know, like in Ohio and some places like that, you have to pay a little bit, but for the most part, most
Right.
places you're not paying for high school sports, especially public schools. And also here in Texas, UIL rules a high school coach can not only not coach any of his own players in travel ball,
Mm.
he can't coach anybody that's in his attendance zone. So if
Wow.
you live, if you know, so you could be playing, you could be going to another high school, maybe you transferred in or whatever. He can't even coach you in the summer if you live in like
Wow.
if you live in their district. So
Wow.
because I have people say, oh, coaches, they play all their travel ball players or
Right.
booster club, parents,
Right.
whatever. And I mean, not saying it never happens, but it's just not nearly as much as parents want to convince themselves.
Wow. I like what you said, Coach, because you said something really important. You said that when you get a certain age, I'm paraphrasing, just paraphrasing what you said.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If if your kid is not playing when you get to high school travel ball, it's not politics. And I'm gonna back you up. Most of the
Mm.
time, it's not politics.
Right, right.
For the
Not
people that are
saying
listening,
never. Yeah,
yeah, for the
yeah.
people that listen, don't give me no ugly email because I really don't care. I'm just letting you know I don't care.
Yeah.
But what Bobby's trying to say, and I'm backing him up, is just because your kid is not playing and he's in high school, he's like, just say he's a sophomore or a junior, because I get texts all the time. Coach,
Mhm.
you still got a travel team. I want to play with you. This. I'm not getting that many at bats. And you know what? I'm gonna go out there, go on a limb. Most of the time, most, not all, but most cases, your son does not have the development skills that he think he has. He doesn't have
Mhm.
a foundation. He
Mhm.
and this is another case. Either he's undersized or he's
Mhm.
oversized,
Mhm.
or he just doesn't have the it factor yet. Would you agree with that, Bobby?
I agree. There are a lot of things. Again, I'm gonna reference another post where I
Go
said
ahead.
in high school baseball, you know, your son's batting 350, but a kid that's batting 260 is playing over him, and almost everybody like was just like, I don't know, you don't know what you're talking about. That makes no sense or
Sense.
whatever.
Right. Right.
And I'm
Right.
like, and the reason why I say that, parents tend to look at like a single stat or a single metric and try to justify. Well, my son's batting 350. He's only batting 260. Why is he playing? And so I said, okay, you're not asking the right
Right
questions. You're not looking
questions.
at not looking at the big picture. Again, the physicality is a big part of it. But let's say the kid that's batting 260, he's walked more, he has more extra base hits. So when you look at the numbers, his on base percentage is almost similar because the other kid, let's say he's a singles hitter,
Correct.
and the other guy, his OPS is actually higher. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's one thing that you have to look at. Another thing is, as a high school coach, and you would know this, I'm going to play the guy that I can trust, that I know that
That's
can
it.
make all the routine plays, that's not going to cost me outs, that knows how to run the bases, that knows how to
Hmm.
hit his cutoffs, that knows how to back up. He knows where to be, that I don't have to worry about. And so there
Right.
may be a player that has more potential upside that can make more of the highlight reel plays, but he's also going to make five, 2 errors
Right.
a game.
Correct.
I'm not going to trust that guy as much.
Right, right, right. And you said it so good. I mean, I'm glad you said that because I got another question that man, you're hitting it. You're hitting it good.
Mhm.
Hey, you're hitting it for the cycle right now, Bobby.
Yeah.
You hit for the cycle.
All right, let's go.
Families are going broke. This is a
Yeah.
heavy topic here. Families are going
Yeah.
broke. They're attending 3, 4 showcases in the summer. They're hoping that that they get a high ranking from what they see behind the scenes. You got regional supervisor telling them, oh, go to the showcase, go to the show. It's mandatory. You got to get this. But they're spending all this money. It's like going to a movie and they're expecting a great reward at the end. Can you help them with this, please, Bobby?
So, so first of all, you have to understand that this whole industry, and again, you've already said it, Coach. There are a lot of good people out there, good organizations, good teams. Everything is not a money grab, but unfortunately, a whole lot of it is a
Is
money grab. This whole industry is built to put their hand in your pocket every step of the way and make you think that if you're not doing everything that they think that you should, you're a bad parent, or if you
right.
don't do it, your son's going to fall behind. Dude, I've talked to a lot of college coaches. I know a lot of college coaches. I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna say 1% of the coaches out there might care or look at perfect game rankings or grades. Maybe it's schools that they don't have any sort of budget for recruiting, and that's kind of
Right.
their starting point.
Right.
The other 99% of the coaches out there do not care. They know. Dude, go look at Max Muncy's profile right now on a major organization's platform. Max Muncy with the Dodgers, not the other Max Muncy. He played at Baylor. He's all star in the major leagues. His grade was a 7.5.
Mm,
I would venture to say that he probably should have been a 10.
right.
Um, go look. I'm just saying, so don't get caught up in all of that. And I know you're probably not going to listen to me, but you don't have to get caught up in all that because it's not going to matter. Another thing is, don't take your son to a showcase unless he actually has something to showcase. Either
Right.
his 60 time, positional velo, exit velo, pop time. Don't do it. A lot of parents say, well, I just want to go because I want to kind of get a baseline. With today in 2026, with all this technology, anytime you go to a showcase anywhere, all of those metrics are now online for anybody to see, and they do follow your son. Um, and then you're going to find yourself spending more money trying to improve his metrics, and you're going to be caught in just it's like a vicious cycle. So
Oh,
don't worry about if he's 15 and he hasn't been to a showcase yet. He's not going to get recruited anyway. So you know what I mean? Like, I'm just being on, like, make sure, like, spend that money on strength, like speed, strength, explosiveness, agility. Spend that money on all those things, and he will have something to showcase when it matters. Because
correct.
with the transfer portal, like, I've portal just opened a couple of days ago. I think there's like
Right.
1,400 people
Yeah.
immediately in it. You look, okay. Now I know I'm talking a lot, Coach, but I want
No,
a
no,
parent
no.
to
You're good.
realize
Go
this.
ahead. Go ahead.
You
Go
have
ahead.
your son's a high school senior, and he's been talking to a D1 coach. Okay, and you think okay, he's D1 ready. So coach says, you know what? Yeah, you have a chance. You have a chance to be our starting second baseman in the spring. So he gets there. He goes through the fall. Well, in December, now you have a kid that has been a 3 year. He's been playing for 3 years at a Power Four school like TCU.
Right.
An infielder who's maybe not getting he's not getting as many reps as he wants. So then he transfers into your son's school. Okay. So first question, who's that coach going to play now? Is he going to play this 18-year-old kid that just came out of high school, or is he going to play the 21, 22-year-old dude who's playing has 3 years of college baseball under his belt? That's a very real reality.
Right.
JUCO transfers. Like my son, so my son's a redshirt sophomore. He's played 3 years of JUCO baseball, first two in Region 5 here in Texas, one of the toughest regions. And then he played this past year at the 3C2A in California. He went to a workout the other day at a top 25 NAIA program with there's two other players there. I didn't know. I'm just watching them. But you look at my son, compared to those other two guys, he looked like a man among boys. And my son is, I mean, he's a middle infielder, but he's not, you know what I mean? He's not huge, but you could just tell the physicality.
Right.
There's no comparison. And so parents, they just get caught up in this mess, man. And yeah, there's a lot to talk about there.
But I want to say this, and I want to back up Bobby as well. And for the people who think, well, he's just backing him up because he's a coach. No, I'm backing him up because it's the truth.
Mhm.
The truth just
Yeah.
sets you free. That's just the bottom line. At the end of the day, Bobby doesn't know your kid. I don't know your kid. You know your kid. But we know this one thing. We know what it takes to get to the next level because we've been there.
Mhm.
Bottom line,
Mhm.
you can't expect someone to be an overnight success if they never really put the shoes on and did the work. Very few can do that. Very
Mhm.
few can do that, which comes to the next question. We're talking about the unrated people. Basically,
Mhm.
we're talking about people, the kids that have 0 star rankings versus rankings, and we talk about the absolute zero playing time versus a guy that plays, which you just hit on that. We're talking about
Mhm.
guys that pitchers that all they can throw is fastballs and things of that nature. The rankings,
Mhm.
and they got the social media hype. you know, what does real baseball grit look like in your eyes, based on your experience, based on all the things you've been through, based on everything I just talked about, the zero rankings versus the rankings, and you know, can you tell the audience what it really looks like in your professional opinion?
So that's a great question. So, I mean, kind of going back to, so I'm gonna say, so I ran an event in the Dominican Republic for 4 years. Okay.
Okay,
And and down there, their whole
totally
goal is
different.
they're
Totally
training
different.
they're training training players to sign at the age of 16. Okay. And everybody talks about, the amount of training that they do versus actual playing. Okay. And I'm going somewhere with this. So just give me, I'm a former pastor, so I like to tell
No,
stories
no,
and
no, no, no,
everything, and I
no.
can preach.
Go ahead,
So
preach it,
so
brother. I
anyway,
I ain't mad at you. Go
so
ahead.
so down there they train the pitchers to throw hard, and they train the batters to hit hard because that's what gets them signed off the island. Their baseball IQs are not, they're not there. They're lacking because they don't have the in-game experience and things, but that's what they do. And I'm saying that because now we've kind of created that in our culture with social media and all the hype and everything, that the the players that get all the love are the ones that can throw hard and can hit hard. Okay. But I tell parents comparison is probably the worst thing. Well, I talk about this. Nobody posts an ugly selfie. So what you see on social media are only the highlights. It's like, the
Right,
picture you see of me and my wife is probably the seventh picture that we took before we finally got one that she said, no, I like the way this
right,
looks. Okay.
right,
But the other six we deleted. You're not seeing the strikeouts. You're not seeing all the errors. You're not seeing all of that. You're just seeing the highlights. So don't compare what you see on social media. Don't compare your son to that. The biggest thing is coaches. There are a lot of coaches out there. I know, the data and analytics and the data nerds kind of drive everything, but I think there's a shift back towards just old school baseball. If you see, even in the
yes,
major leagues,
yes.
teams that probably didn't bunt more than twice a season for
That's
several
right.
years
That's
are
right.
bunting three times in one inning this year. You know what I mean? You're
That's right.
seeing more of you know what I mean? So
That's right.
so and like so data is a good, it's a good supplement, but the data is not the be all end all, because you could see a guy that a batter with the exit velo of 105 off, measured off the tee in a controlled environment. The other guy's exit velo might be 95, but the guy with the 95 exit velo might be a much better hitter. He might be, to hit behind the runner, move the guy over from second to third, all sorts of things. So don't be discouraged. That the other thing is, I would say, there's a lot of coaches value. They want to see your son in action. They want to see how he plays. They don't necessarily want to see him go 4 for 4. They may prefer to see him go 0 for 4 because they want to see, how does he handle a bad game? How does he handle a strikeout? Does he let a strikeout carry over into the field, and now he just struck out? Now he just booted a ball because he's thinking
Right.
about his strikeout. They want to see all of those things. And the other thing I would say too is just, you didn't necessarily even ask this, but make sure that the schools that you're targeting for your son are a realistic fit. And it's hard because I know most parents overvalue their son's ability and his ceiling, but the more realistic you can be, the more opportunity he's going to have. And focus on those schools, communicate with those coaches, go to their camps so they can see him in action. And it won't matter if your son
Right.
is a high follow on a certain, by a certain organization or wherever. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
I was going to get there,
uh,
but you already got there before I got there. But it's okay.
sorry,
No, 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 no,
sorry.
no, 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 no. You
Yeah,
good. You
yeah,
actually my
yeah,
next question. I'm talking about. I like what you said. I mean, I'm all for it. You free here. You going pro. You can let it rip because I mean this is what we
yeah,
do here. But I want to say
yeah.
something you based on what you just talked about. But I'm gonna go a little deeper. It says, what in your opinion, what is the brutal reality of early commitment culture that parents think it's a blessing and also can turn to a curse?
It's going to be a curse way more than it is a blessing. I literally, a buddy of mine, Stephen Mahler. If you've never had him on the show, you need to have him on the show. His son
Stephen Mahler?
Ian, yeah, Stephen Mahler. His son Ian Mahler, went up through all the MLB develops and Dream Series and everything. He verbally committed to LSU in the 8th grade, and but ended up getting drafted by the Rangers in the 4th round out of high school. I think in either 2020 or 2021. He's playing Double A for the Rangers right now in Frisco. So, but he's a big, great person to talk to. I texted him. I could show it to you. This text message yesterday, because I don't hear as much about early commitments or verbal commitments, as you used to a few years ago. And there's reasons why, but people still do it. Here's the bottom line. Okay, if I'm a college coach and I have, so we're in the 2020, so well, 2026 just graduated. Okay.
Right.
So I'll say 2029s, 2028s. I'll say 28s because
Right.
um
Right. The
okay,
junior.
can't be
Junior.
official yet anyway. So if I have 10, if your son is a 2028 shortstop and he comes to me and tells me that he wants to, hey coach, I love your program. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm verbally committing right now. Like I'm all in. I'm going to say absolutely, man. Absolutely. Because I might have 10 other 2028 shortstops that are all making verbal commitments to me. And then I'm going to wait and see what happens over the next year or two. And then I'm going to decide which two that I want.
That's
And
right.
if your son is not one of those two, sorry, but what you've done is taking yourself off the market on a dream that there's nothing binding about anything verbal. It's not binding until you actually sign on signing day. And I love the analogy I love to use on that is like, imagine your son's a high school freshman and he sees this girl that's the most beautiful girl in the school, and he goes up and tells her, "Hey, I know it's 4 years away, but senior prom, I want to take you to senior prom. Will you go to the prom with me?" And she says, "Absolutely." But in her mind, she's like, "I'm gonna see if something better comes along."
Correct.
So he's not looking for a prom date. I'm set. She's looking at other options. Well, then come senior year, she decides, you
Right.
know what? No, I found somebody better. Now he's, you know what I mean? Now he's left out. He's going to prom by himself. It's the same thing, and coaches will do it. It's cutthroat. One thing I will say, that Perfect Game, a resource that they have that's a good tool is you can go on there and any school, any division, you can see what commitments are made by a grad year and what position. I would go to the Perfect Game website, and for schools that you're interested in, just as a
Right.
starting point, go and see how many
Right.
players from my son's grad year that play his position are already committed here.
That's right.
Because again, you know, my son at one point was interested in Long Beach State, I think, and we went and looked, and they already had like 5 other commitments from middle infielders from his grad year. I'm like, why do you want to go there? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I'm
Right.
all for competing, but
Right.
you want to go to the best program where you have the best chance to play from day one.
Correct. Yeah, it's called common sense, basically.
Yeah,
I'm just
but
being.
common
That's what it's
sense,
called. It's
common
common
sense is not
sense.
always
It's
commonly
common.
practiced.
That's right.
Yeah,
I had to throw that out there because you're
yeah,
dropping these truth bombs again. You hit for a
yeah,
cycle right now. Like, listen,
yeah.
just tell them what it is. I mean, bottom line is this. I appreciate what you just said, Bobby. That was really good. But don't forget to hook me up with this guy named Stephen Mahler.
Stephen Mahler.
I'm gonna have to. I don't know his number, but I'm gonna figure out a
I'm
way to
gonna
get
send it
him.
to you. I'll send it to
Okay,
you. Yeah,
but let's.
yeah.
Something else that we don't talk about, and I'm talking about us, me and you, because we pretty much do the same similar stuff.
Mm,
And we talked a few other things, but I don't want to forget this because you talked about development. Because
mm,
I consider myself a development coach personally.
mm,
Because after you think about what is a true definition of development, because I
mhm,
think development also piggybacks foundation. It's a
mm,
foundation. And a lot of times we got all these guys, and this is not one of my questions, but I was just thinking about something you said earlier about everyone thinks they're development coaches, but they're really not.
Hmm.
And I define development as foundational, basic, mastering the foundational
Hmm.
principles of baseball. That's just part one. That's just the first part.
Hmm.
Because a lot of kids can hit a ball, throw a ball, catch a ball, but they don't understand the why do I do this when this happens?
Hmm.
When do I do this when this happens? Is it
Hmm.
okay for me to hit a sacrifice deep fly ball for our team can score and win the game? They don't get that part. So, can you break down in your really quick analogy what is developmental to you?
Okay. And again, like I said, it's very subjective. It's kind of a
Correct. Correct.
buzzword.
Correct.
So to me, development is, it's just, to me, it's seeing a player. Okay, build. I'm gonna use the word you said, foundation. Building a foundation and skills, both physically and mentally, that help a player improve and prepare for the next level.
That's it.
Okay, so
That's it.
I know that's kind of vague, but that, to me, that's
But
my
that's it.
definition, and
Yeah,
it could
that's
be a
it.
lot of different things. Because you're teaching them the physical skills, but you're also teaching them the mental skills, the baseball IQ part, to understand those things. Um, I mean, I'm old school, but like every time the ball's put in play, everybody has some place to be.
That's right.
Nobody should be
Standing
nobody
still.
should be standing
Stand
around.
still. That's right.
But but the challenge, and I'm not saying, like, I never played professionally. I played, played in college, got hurt really, really early. I played kind of the equivalent of men's travel ball. We went to Mexico and played multiple times, but I have coached, at the high school level. I've coached travel ball every age. I've coached with former major leaguers. I've done all that and everything. But I'm not saying that you have to play at the highest levels to be able to coach or teach, but you're going to reach a point you're going to reach a point, especially in high school, where if your coach hasn't played, at least in college, it's harder for him because it, you okay, so my oldest son quit baseball to play golf. Well, when he was in high school, the guy that I had him work with was a guy that won 13 tournaments in college. He won the U.S. Amateur and he won on the PGA Tour. And the reason why I wanted him to work with him was because unless like he knew what it was like to make a 10-foot downhill breaking putt to win the U.S. Amateur. If you've never experienced it, if you never faced a D1 fastball or a D1 cutter or a major league, you know what I mean? You can all you're doing is just teaching on theory. You know what I mean? And so there is a value in the experience. I'm not saying everybody that's experienced it is a good
Right.
teacher, but
Correct.
my son Julian, all the guys he worked with on his hitting, most of them all played at the major league level because they can teach him what it's like. It's not theory. Like right now, if I'm
Correct.
trying to teach somebody what's it like to face a major league slider, I've never done that. So it's
Correct.
just I'm just
Correct.
so yeah.
I like that what you said. I mean, which there's a lot of kids now that only play one sport.
Hmm.
Now in Texas, it's a little different. And Florida is different too. But for the masses, the other 48 states, you're dealing with performance and development. So check this out. There's a massive push for specializing at the age of 9, 10 for data, to show coaches, what they can compete at different areas. My question to you is why are so many people, parents, afraid to play dual or multiple sports? Because there is a plus in playing multiple sports. Why is that?
Well, and I was going to reference, like, okay, like you look at famous two-way, two multiple sport players like Bo Jackson, Dion. Okay, they're freak athletes, so that's not really an apples to apples comparison. It's FOMO though. The industry, like, think about this: if I'm running a travel ball organization or I'm coaching a travel ball team and I'm getting paid, well, if you don't play with me in the fall and you're playing football, I'm not making money off of you. And I'm gonna have to go find somebody else, or if not, my income suffers. That's just the bottom line. I think now, like my son Julian, he there was a time where he wanted to play basketball, which I'm fine, go do it. You know what I mean? Because it's for his school, so it wasn't a big deal. But for the most part, he just wanted to play baseball. That's what he wanted. So that's what we did. Now he played other sports on with friends, like things like that, but it just wasn't organized. So, and then he also did training that was multi-sport training, so and everything. But to the parents, I'm gonna say, like, I don't know that playing other sports in the fall is ever going to hurt you, although even if your son's a high school senior, because there are a lot of college coaches that value multi-sport athletes, and what they're going to be more concerned about is what is he doing in the spring season anyway, spring or summer season anyway. You're not going to fall behind. I mean, you can play football, you can play basketball, you can play whatever, soccer. You can still, I mean, get your cuts in the
Yeah.
cages, whatever. So you're not. But this whole industry is designed to make you think that if you're not doing
Right.
this, your son's going to fall
Fall
behind,
behind. Right.
which is a lie.
Yeah. Yeah. You're exactly right. I'm glad you said that because we're talking about speaking about development and modern youth landscape. If you're going to put your kid in a position to be seen by
Mhm,
pro scouts, college scouts, top tier scouts, you cannot waste your money on local mom and pop teams and zero
mhm,
connections. You got to be smart. You need to be with an organized organization, professional franchise, which You Going Pro
mhm,
podcast is probably sponsored by the Wow Factors. Hand down one of the fastest growing travel organizations there. They have also signed 1,200 college commits as well, 30 MLB draft picks throughout their system as well. And on top of that, if you want to get more information about the Wow Factor travel team, DM me at YouGoing Pro Sports. Again, DM me at YouGoing Pro Sports on Instagram. So with that, Coach Bobby, I like you because you're a no nonsense guy, straight truth. Period. Bottom line. I love it. And every time you do something, I'm gonna always comment. Love it. I love it. With that being said, Bobby, I like what you said about a lot of things. There's another thing that we haven't really touched on was toughness, being uncomfortable, having uncomfortable
mhm,
conversations, with that father or that mother that believes that their son is a for sure
mhm,
D1 prospect or locked in,
mhm,
when the raw reality is the kid probably is a D3 or a JUCO
mhm.
player. How do you deliver that truth to that person?
You just deliver it. Like I said, I mean, I was a pastor for 12 years. And so I don't like when I would preach, sometimes three times on a Sunday, like I don't sugarcoat it because you just why life is too short.
That's
Now
right.
there's a way to deliver it though. Like I
Right.
mean, like you can just like, so this is where you can say, okay, look, like your son, he's a great ball player, he's still developing, whatever. Right now, this is what D1 coaches are looking for, and you can just tell, like, those, like, that's factual, that's not me, my opinion, this is what they're looking for. So, you know like that preferred walk-on spot that they're offering your son
Yes.
is
Yes.
my, like, I would not do that. I would take this D2 offer, where they're offering him 40%, because that's a really good offer. You know, at the end of the day, I'm going to tell parents what I think, but it's ultimately their decision. But I'm going to try to give them all the reasons why, that I'm going to try to steer as far away from opinion and, you know, being subjective, and just try to
The truth.
stick to the facts,
Yeah.
just the facts, and let them know why this is what they look for. Because the thing is, though, even as a coach, I'm gonna tell them what I see right now, but I don't have a crystal ball.
Right.
I talk a lot about our 9U AA team that I help coach with a couple other guys. I mean, we have four players from the 9U AA team that are all playing in college right now. The two biggest, or like physically, they just bloomed early. The two biggest and statistically the best from that team, and two of the smallest and statistically worst from that team, which include my son. So you look at the players right there, and I tell, like, I would have never known. One of the players for sure, I would have never, ever, ever. If you would have said, I'll give you 1,000 to 1 odds. You want to bet $100 right now on whether this kid is going to play in college. I would have said no. And I mean, he just finished his third year of college baseball. So there's a lot of things. Everybody's path is different. I always talk a lot
Right.
about that. Everybody's path is different, and so, but the more realistic you can be, the more clear the path is going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. And the Bible says the truth shall set you free.
Yeah,
And all that getting, getting understanding. Wisdom is the
yeah,
principal thing. So get
yeah,
it. So
yeah,
get
absolutely.
it.
But you got
So
to be
get it.
careful. You got to be careful who you're listening to.
Right, right, and that's what
Yeah.
discernment comes in at.
Hmm.
Discernment, and that's another conversation for another message. And, and
Yeah.
revelation, because a lot of people don't know what that is. But you got to
Yeah.
understand, in wise counsel there's safety. That's biblical too. In wise
Yeah.
counsel there's safety.
Mm.
But a lot of times people don't know what wise counsel looks like, because they've been listening.
Yeah.
They've been on this too long. If
Yeah.
you turn that off, you can shut down half of the noise. But with that, you talked about being old school grit. I love it. You're talking about a lot of things, but you've been in, locker rooms and you've seen kids, get called out from high school coaches for missing a sign, mental
Mhm.
errors. Half of the time, the parents are emailing the principal, they're emailing the coach. How do you
Mhm.
build toughness for players when the environment they're around refuses to face discomfort?
You have to first embrace the fact that letting your son experience it is the best thing you could do for him. Because if you protect him from everything, I hate to tell you this, but once baseball's over and he's out in the real world, it
Oh
doesn't
man,
get any easier.
oh
It doesn't
man,
get any easier. So you got to stop contacting the coach on his behalf. You got to stop excusing and justifying all of his mistakes. Because what we you end up creating, we create a society of a bunch of, to me, spoiled, entitled players that think that, they deserve to be playing over everybody. And I'm telling you, it doesn't get any easier.
that's right.
It does. And when you get like high school level, college level, um, like if I was a college coach and a parent was reaching out to me asking me things about playing time and things like that, his son would not be with my program next year. Like
Yeah,
you're not going to do that. But the higher the level, the more that's at stake, the more the coaches are going to do what they think they should do to win.
correct.
And you got to prepare your son for that, because that's going to show you a lot more about his character, how he
Right,
handles setbacks,
right.
than anything.
Well, Bobby, so my question to you is this, and this is off the cut. I don't even have this one. I was thinking about a situation with a kid that played with me this year, and his mom made some very valid points. I'm not saying she wasn't right, but
Mm-hmm.
the problem is, I think that sometimes when you, and this kid's like a junior, going to be a
Hmm.
senior, and she was like, "Well, my kid's not playing, da da da," and she was right about a lot of stuff. But I think the problem, no, one other problem is this: he needs to learn how to deal with failure himself. Because a
Hmm.
lot of times, you may be giving him the right answers, and sometimes don't even answer. That's the best answer, because sometimes you don't know, which we talked about this early in the episode.
Hmm.
You don't know what the coach is doing or why he did what he did, because
Hmm.
you got transfers coming in. Why this transfer
Hmm.
came in? He didn't do this, and he wasn't here. That's true, but a lot of times goes back to development. We got a kid
Hmm.
coming from out of state. He doesn't have the skills that this other kid has, or whatever the case may be. So I try to give him a clean playing field to understand you're not a coach. What you're saying makes sense, but a lot of times
Hmm.
you got to understand, like you talked about, undersized. You're undersized. You're not fully developed, which that's fine. But it comes to a point that you have to let the boys or the girls, because maybe some girls listening, you got to let them
Yeah.
fail. You have to let them fail. Period.
Hmm.
Failure can be your best enemy, but your friend later, because you'll know how to deal with adversity. I mean, because baseball, you're gonna fail more than succeed. How many times you're gonna strike out? How many times you're gonna fly out?
Yeah.
How many times you're gonna do that? But if you keep crutching him or keep coming in and saying, "Oh, Johnny, it's okay," no, it's okay. You're gonna fail. So,
Hmm.
can you elaborate on that a little bit before I get to that next question?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you said it. Like you have to prepare them for failure and allow them to fail. There's a guy. Um, at, two really quick stories. So a guy, I was at a entrepreneurs event several years ago,
Okay.
and I was having dinner with one of the main speakers, a guy, Bernard Bronner. His family's huge out of Atlanta. They own, I mean, multiple businesses, and I mean, huge, huge, huge. And I asked him, I said, "Hey, what's one thing you would say to somebody, to an entrepreneur that's just starting out?" And he said, "Don't look at the 20 cars that I have in my driveway right now. Look at the 20 businesses that I started and failed,
Mm,
that prepared me for the success that I'm finally happening. So, I mean, that I'm experiencing." So, I mean, that's the first thing. Again, allow your son to fail. Realize Shohei Otani, I mean, to me, greatest player on the planet, he still gets out 70% of the time. Okay. But it goes back to, you start comparing to what you see on social media, again, forgetting that you're only seeing the highlight reel.
that's right.
Everybody fails. Even the
Right.
guys that are the dudes fail. So
That's right.
that's the first thing. But see, like my son, because I prepared him for failure. I feel so well. And he didn't live and die on any single at bat or any single game. He knew that that didn't define who he was as a player. His senior year, he did something he has never done his entire life. He went 0 for 5 with 5 strikeouts.
Mm,
Um, it was just one of those games. But his team, it was a district game near the end of the season, and they were battling for the playoff spot, and they ended up winning on a walk off. I think maybe in 8 innings. Okay,
okay.
he so when they won on a walk off, he was probably the first one off the bench because he was in the dugout. He wasn't batting. First one out of the dugout, celebrating with everybody. If you would have saw him, you would not have known that he just went 0 for
Right.
5 with 5 strikeouts,
Right.
or went 0 for or went 5 for 5 with 5 bombs. You know what I
That's right.
mean? Because he knew it sucked. I'm gonna learn from this, and then we have another game in a couple of days. And
Carry
so you got to
momentum.
prepare them for that instead of babying them and making them feel like they're entitled. But again, a lot of parents are afraid that if they don't kiss their son's butt, then he's going to quit baseball.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what? And
That's
they
a
just
lot of
create to me, a bunch of like entitled bad people.
yeah.
Every team has them. You got the kids that are jerks. I'm
Yeah,
just being
yeah,
real
yeah,
because
yeah, yeah, for
because
sure.
their parents, there's no consequences.
Yeah, yeah, and
You
that's
know,
something. But also you got to realize you're not building a leader. You're
right?
not building a leader. You're just
Mm,
building a follower because at the end of the day, we need more strong leaders,
yeah,
especially
yeah.
boys, because if you think that's hard, go to the military.
Oh yeah,
you'll
yeah,
you'll know real quick. So
yeah.
we talked about something, the transfer portal, before me and you got on the air. Got a couple more questions
Mm,
left, and then we're gonna wrap it up. But
okay.
Bobby, we talked a little bit about the transfer portal before we came on the air, and we talked about recruiting because college coaches are now opening up with the transfer portal. It was over
Mm,
like 1,200 people, something like that, and we
mm,
got 21-year-old grown men
mm,
playing, basically
mm,
competing against an 18-year-old senior. That's a
mm.
no-brainer for me and you. That's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest adjustments for high school families has to be making that recruiting strategy, making that transfer portal, and understanding the rules of the game. We talked about it before we came on air, but can you break that down? Because at the end of the day, this is me. My kid is 18. I don't have an 18-year-old, but I'm just saying, if I had an 18-year-old kid, he's going to a
Hmm.
school, I'd be like, listen, listen, let me tell you something, son. You're competing not against the school. You're competing against the 22-year-old, the 23-year-old, and maybe the 21-year-old. Yeah, your numbers mean something
Mm,
today for your ego. It's all about your ego today. But I guarantee you,
mhm,
once you graduate, once you walk across that stage, and
mhm,
you go to University of Tampa, let's use that for example. That's a D2 school.
mhm.
You're just a number.
Good program.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very good program, by the way. Very
Yeah.
good program. But the point
Yeah.
is, well, coach said he
Mhm.
likes me. Coach Bobby, the coach said he likes me, and he said I'm gonna play, and this, and I'm sitting there thinking, honey, son, you don't get it. You haven't got the message. So,
Mhm.
can you give them a snippet of a recruiting strategy based on the transfer portal versus a high school 18-year-old?
So, great question, and very real. Like I said, I mentioned my son. My son's a redshirt sophomore this year. So what does that mean for people that don't know? It means
Yes.
his first year he got 100% to a D1 JUCO in Region 5. So great offer, great school, and everything. It just wasn't a good fit. He didn't play in the spring. He redshirted, so he didn't lose a year
Eligibility.
of
Okay.
athletic eligibility. So he still had 2 years. So he played the last 2 years. So he's a redshirt sophomore. There's a D1 school that he's been coach that he's been talking to that they like him, but like he reached out to this coach as soon as his season finished, and
Hmm.
the coach said, "Hey, I have to wait until I see what comes out of the portal,
Correct.
so I can even see what I need." So
Correct.
again, unless your kid is a high school senior that is just like a dude, like you know what I mean,
Right.
physically and everything, and
Right.
he's like dominating. He's not only the best player on his high school team, he's best player in his district, one of the best players in his district, and all that. Then like all the big D1 schools, power four schools, things like that are not to me probably not even an option. Like if they had, you're not gonna, it's just if you hadn't already been talking to them for years, like it's not gonna happen.
Happen. Right.
And I think so. I think the most important thing is realizing that if your son wants to play base, because this is what happens, you have a lot of players that are good enough to play baseball in college, But what they're faced with now is the decision: um, do I go to North Central Texas College, a JUCO in Gainesville, Texas, to play baseball, or do I go to Texas A&M where I can just be a frat boy for the college experience and I'm not going to play baseball? And so that's the thing. Like, how much does your son love it, and how much does he really want to play? Because that's going to be the decision that you're going to have to make. One of my son's buddies right now, he was a year younger than my son. Um, Good ball player, graduated. Well, he didn't want to he loved baseball, but he said, you know what, he went to like Alabama or Arkansas somewhere for his first year because that's what he wanted to do. Then he realized, you know what, I still want to play baseball. And so he transferred from the big university this past season to a D3 JUCO here in one of the Dallas community colleges, Cedar Valley, and played and had a great time. But that's the first thing, just being realistic with how much does your son love baseball? How much does he really want to play? And then finding the schools that are the best fit. Because
Right, right.
here's another eye opener. Your high school roster, if you have 30 players on your roster, that's going to be on the high end. Well, when you look at a college roster outside of D1, because there's roster limits, but like JUCOs, NAIA, the ones that aren't limited, you might have 60 or 70 players on the roster. So again, be realistic. To
Mm,
me, you should look at the school that the best school with the best facilities, that's going to make you the best offer, that's going to give you the best chance to play from day one. A
yeah,
lot of factors, but that's what you should look for.
yeah,
And if your son doesn't want to go to the middle of Kansas or West Texas, that's fine. But you know
right.
what I mean. But it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, yeah, I'm glad you said that, and brings me to one little example for the listeners that are listening. This is episode 148, chasing the baseball dreams. We got Bobby Miner himself on the show today. Before we wrap it up, we got a couple more questions, but I want to give you an example of what you just said. I got a guy here in South Florida, and pretty good kid. I coached him since he's been in eighth grade. Coached him all the way to 11th grade, and then I took a bigger position at another school to become a head coach at another school. To make a long story short, I trained him since he's been in eighth grade, like little boy,
Mm-hmm.
and he was the smallest kid on the team, the smallest kid, but he was fast. And I almost said his name, but I want to say his name. And I used to train him all the time, and his parents used to ask me, Coach, what do you think? I said, well, first of all, he hasn't had his growth spurt yet. He hasn't grown
Mm-hmm.
yet. That's the first thing. So his body's going to
Mm-hmm.
change. He's going to get stronger. He's going to get faster. He might get slower. It depends. I don't know. But for the most part, she said, well, do you think, because I'm a speed and agility guy, strictly speed, agility, development, and then hitting. And that's something I did because that's when I played in college baseball. I was like a track guy playing baseball. So I kept his speed with the glove, speed with the bat, speed on the field,
Mm-hmm.
and speed up here.
Mm-hmm.
So I taught him that. So I told something. I'll never forget what I had the last conversation we had before I took the next job. I said, listen, he can play either D2 or a D1 lower level school. Period.
Mm-hmm.
He had a great glove. He can hit, and he had a little speed. And his parents looked at me like, "Are you serious?" So, make a long story short, I'm gonna speed it up. Guess where he's at today? He went to a school. I don't want to say the name because people know who he is, but he went to a school up on the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Starts as a freshman. Now, it wasn't easy, but he's at a D1 lower level school. Now, he left
Yeah.
Florida. He left cold weather to go, hot weather to go to cold weather. And now this year he's like All American. I made that point based on what you just said. It was a good fit academically,
Yeah.
the atmosphere, the environment. But it all started when I had a heart to heart talk with the parents, a real talk. Like,
Mm-hmm.
listen, don't try to go to university. Don't try to go to the University of Virginia. Don't try to go to University of Texas. It's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
So I just want to give that example based on what you just said.
Great example. Yeah. That's
So
exactly right.
so I just wanted to tell you that
You got to be realistic.
realistic with yourself, and he's thriving now. He hit over 300 this year. Led his district in doubles and things of that and run scored. But he's doing a great job, and also he's getting education. Don't forget that part. We're getting education
Yeah.
because you can't play baseball forever. For the people that listen, you can't play baseball forever.
It's true.
So let's talk about the last couple of questions I have. What is the definition of baseball dream, Mr. Bobby Miner. Your brand is chasing baseball dreams, which I like that name.
Yeah.
You know, but we both know that 99% of the kids, the jersey eventually comes off before they even reach to the big leagues or another level. So with that,
Mm.
looking back at your D1 days, your coaching career, what is your ultimate asset of the game that gives young men when they're dreaming about playing professional or beyond that or college baseball, chase based on
Yeah.
your business brand?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just, again, I think, uh, excuse me, that at some point, your kid, parents might sign their kid up for t-ball with no expectations or no dreams. They're just introducing him to the sport, something to do. But as soon as they start seeing something special in him, you know, he can throw hard, hit hard, whatever. I think that's where the dream is kind of birthed, if you will. And I think whether they admit it or not, most parents out there have the dream at least of their son playing in college one day. I think that's the dream. Now, others dream of playing, in the major leagues, of course, but that's the dream. And so, once that dream is spawned, then now you spend the rest of your time chasing that dream. And you can absolutely chase the dream. You can chase the dream with a healthier perspective than a lot of parents have, and not spend as much money as you spend, and not get caught up in worrying about things that don't matter, and just enjoy the experience with your son, and he
Right.
enjoys the experience with you. And then if the dream does become a reality, that is like the bonus to everything.
Yeah.
But so many parents get so caught up in the dream, as the destination, that they miss out on a lot, during the journey. And
Yeah.
it creates a lot of friction with their son, son or daughter, for whatever. And um so yeah, that, I mean,
Yeah.
that's just kind of it. Like, you're chasing that dream.
I like that because what made you get that name right there, Bobby? How did you pick that name, chasing the baseball dream?
Dude, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm a creator. I've written books. I've created online courses and things. The name, even when I write my books, I start with the title. So I just work, work, work until I have the title. And then once the title's right, then everything else kind of falls into place. So, um, I toyed with like chasing D1 dreams, but the thing about D1 dreams,
Right.
the domain might have already, and also I'm looking big on, is the domain name available. But D1 dreams was just too vague because it could
Right.
mean any sport, and then
Right.
not everybody has D1 dreams.
That's right.
So I said, you know what, chasing baseball dreams, because that's what it is.
Well, I think that I got one more question before we close out. I think we're
Okay.
brothers. We're brothers from another mother, because you sound a lot like me, a lot
Yeah.
like me for sure. Because I'm the same way. I got my hands in a little bit of everything. I'm a man of
Mm.
God. I'm
Yeah.
proud to say that, and it's like I do a lot of things as well. And when I heard you talk for the first time, I was trying to, going through my basic every week. I go through looking for guests and da 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 da. And I was like, who is this? I like this cat. I like this cat. Where is he? And I said, let me listen to some more. Listen to some more. I said, man, I had never heard too many people that sound like me. I like this guy. But you're doing a
Mm.
great job, Bobby. I'm not saying this to say I like what you're saying, because I think we're very similar in a lot of ways. And I appreciate what you're doing. I also check out his website as well. What's your website again, Bobby?
It's
Your
so just here,
website.
go to my social. Well, I know, but go to my. I have a couple of domains that direct to different things. Just
Okay.
go to my Instagram at Chasing Baseball Dreams. I have two links in my bio.
Okay.
Both of them will
Yeah.
take you somewhere good.
Yeah, and he's not just saying it, it's good because I checked it out. He's legit. He's a
Mm.
legit. I like it.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
with my last question, we're gonna close it out. Let's throw
Mm.
this final strike, Bobby. I know you will.
Mm.
You've already hit like two cycles already during the game, and let's finish this out. Everything, seeing your
Mm.
community every single day, which I just said, your family completely throughout. Yes, your son is playing the baseball path. He's on his way. So, my question to you is: what is something that you can say to the audience that can bring value versus hype?
I think Well, I already said it. I mean, I mentioned it just a few minutes ago, but I think fully understand and embrace that everyone's path is different.
Okay.
And so it's, another analogy. I've used this when I was preaching before. If a plane is flying from LA to New York, once that plane takes off, it's off course a majority of the time. And the pilot's making just, a series of adjustments, adjustments,
Adjustments.
adjustments, but it's off course most of the time. And you don't realize that because you just, you took off at LAX, now you land at JFK and you think all is good. So just realize that wherever your son's starting point was, whatever it was, um, and whatever his ultimate destination is, whatever dream you're chasing, just realize you're probably going to do more things wrong than right along the way. And it's just a series of adjustments. But don't get caught up in comparing your son and his path to somebody else because it does not look the same. In
Right.
baseball, baseball, I talk to parents every day, players every day, where they tell me my son didn't even make varsity till his senior year, and now he played D1 baseball, and now he's in his third year playing in the Rockies organization. Things like that. Like my son was 5'1" his sophomore year, and then he graduated, and he's 6'2". You just there's a saying, like, you can't see the picture when you're in the frame. And so, like, you just have to realize that there's a lot of things that you may not see in the moment where you're at,
Right.
but you got to almost kind of keep, like,
Tunnel vision.
blinders on.
Yeah.
Yeah, where you're not looking, not being distracted by everything out there, because you're going to see it. And this is the other thing. This was something that was very liberating for me and my son. Um, we early on, I think his eighth grade year, we made the decision that we were going to be as happy for others as we wanted them to be happy for us.
Yeah.
So when we see somebody else getting that invitation or getting
Yes.
that recognition or receiving that accolade, we're celebrating. If they're our friend, we're celebrating them. We're not
Yeah.
hating on them. We're not, well, I don't know why he got that. My
Yes.
son bad at whatever. We're like, what, that's awesome for you. We're happy for you, because when my son experienced things, I wanted people to celebrate him too.
That's right. That's right.
And he did receive, he got to do several things. And so I think that's probably the biggest thing. Be as happy for others as you want them to be happy for you.
All right. Hey, you basically preaching. You didn't realize that, but you're preaching.
Yeah.
That was
I've
fruit.
used, I've used that in a sermon before.
Hey,
So
he's preaching. So that's basically the fruits of the spirit. If
yeah.
you want to show yourself friendly, be friendly. If you want someone to be
Yeah.
friendly, you show yourself to be friendly. And I appreciate
Yeah.
what you said, Coach Bobby Miner. Again, his I'm looking at his Instagram. Chasing Baseball Dreams. Go to that. Check it out. He helps parents not screw it up. So if you want to get some real facts, truth, I call it truth, not facts, truth
Hmm.
about the reality of real baseball, of youth baseball, go to Chasing Baseball Dreams. I had a very own Bobby Miner. I appreciate that, Bobby. You have been absolutely on fire today, brother. Thank you for coming in.
I
You have
appreciate it.
you have done a great job. You kept it 100 for all the families, for
Hmm.
who's to navigate this grind that they're going to go through. Make
Hmm.
sure you check out Chasing Baseball Dreams. This is Coach Larry. I want to say thank you again for coming out. Hey, as I always ask the question at the end of the show, are you going pro or are you going home? Because here, you going pro. We don't do things average. We have players become pros on and off the field so they can dominate. And also, lastly, if you want to get a copy of my book, go to RUD1, that's AREYLU, the letter D, the number one.com. Grab your book while supplies last round. This is Coach Laurie. I'm signing out. Thanks a lot, Coach. I appreciate it. And I'm going to call you, I'm going to text you
Hey,
about my guy, okay?
for sure, man. Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
Appreciate it.